Okay, a couple of things to note here. I'm just going to be doing C major, key of C major, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. And there's going to be a couple of things that you need to know here. That's just the chords that fit in that key, which I've talked about before, but I'll just go over them again. So there's like a C major 7, which is the 1 chord, D minor 7, 2 chord, E minor 7, 3 chord, F major 7, 4 chord, G7, 5 chord, A minor 7, 6 chord, B minor 7 flat 5, which is the 7 chord, and there's a C major 7 again. And the voicings that I'm going to be using are the ones that I just did, which is all on the 5th, the 4th, the 3rd, or the 2nd string. But I'm also going to be using the other ones I use a lot, which is the voicings where I'm using the 6th string for the root note, skipping the 5th string, and then playing the other notes on the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd string. So when I do it like that, we have C major 7, D minor 7, E minor 7, F major 7, G7, A minor 7, B minor 7 flat 5, back to C major 7. And that's really about it. Just knowing the major scale itself too, which is kind of just the basis of the chords I was just doing, is a part of this too, because that's what you're going to be using for the bass lines. You know, in any number of different positions, but just for what I'm doing here, you should just be concerned with knowing it on the bottom 2 strings here, because that's the only, whenever I do a chord, the bass note is going to either be on the 6th string or the 5th string, so just knowing the C major scale on those strings is going to be really important. Whatever it may be. Just the first thing that I would do if you want to learn how to do chord and bass stuff is just take your chords as they are, and then practice doing this first, just separating the bass note from the other notes. Where am I? Oh, wrong chord. It's supposed to be a minor, yeah. Because having the independently moving bass notes and chord tones there are really, that's the whole point of what we're doing, because we're going to be doing chords with bass lines together. So being able to do those separately is crucial. and then do this with it. Just kind of try to give it a little bit of a rhythm. Nothing complicated at all. As long as you're separating the bass from the rest of the chord, then you're doing it right. See how for each chord I'm not changing bass notes, I'm just playing the same root note and then the chord. And I'm just keeping it very simple. Or if we're doing it in the other chord shapes. But that's the first step when actually playing the independent chord and bass lines. Then, after that, that's when you can start kind of using the bass lines to lead from one chord to another. And here's a way I'm going to do that. I'm just going to start with the C, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to go up and I'm going to play the D first, and then I'm going to play the chord along with it, and just kind of have the bass line kind of go ahead of the chords a little bit. Unfortunately, the key of C is not the best one to be using dealing with the chords where you're doing the starting with the root on the 6th string, because it kind of starts right here, then you get up to here and you run out of space, then you have to go back down and jump down an octave and do it there. But just working with C major is easier because there's no sharps or flats again. So changing the bass line just a little bit, adding a few extra hits in there. Now let's give it more of a really slow shuffle sort of a feel to it, where we're going to have something like this. Back to a simpler actual bass line where the bass and the chords are kind of going together and the bass isn't leading the chords. But if you want to take that that more of a shuffle feel, then add it with the bass line that kind of leads in front of the chords a little bit, you get something like this. going to speed up a little bit, and a couple of things real quick. One, I'm using hybrid picking here, so the pick is hitting the bass notes, and then the fingers are getting everything else. You could just use your thumb if you want. And also, there's going to be a lot of kind of like staccato attacks where you, with the chords, where you're muting them. You play the chords and then you mute them kind of quickly. And you're going to be doing, at some point, you're going to be muting the bass a little bit too. Not letting it sustain all the way. But the muting of the chords is more important for now. A little bit faster. I started throwing in an extra chord hit in there too. Just kind of lost my connection there. Hopefully that won't cause too many problems. Okay, but anyway, so that really kind of covers just the chord and bass movement, and that also covers just kind of the major scale that everything's being based around, like a major chord scale as well. It's all just really important parts of what it is that we're doing here. So let's go into the turnarounds a little bit. So yeah, turnarounds are just kind of like it's like a cadence in jazz where it leads at the end of one section into the next section, or it repeats. But some of the really common ones that you hear are like I just have like a little list here. I'll include a little snapshot of it. 1, 6 minor, 2 minor, 5. Okay, so in C major we have a 1 like this. And then we have a 6 minor, which was the A minor 7 I should say. The 2 minor is the D minor. And then the 5 chord, which is a 7th chord, is the G7. So C major 7, A minor 7, D minor 7, G7. Sometimes I'll be using, instead of playing the G7 like this, just doing it like this. You know, like a C7, but up here on G. That's more just for kind of convenience and comfort, but I'll probably wind up switching back and forth between those two and not really realizing that I'm doing it. So just a heads up that you may see that. So let's take those notes now. So, and let's kind of add a bass line in with those. So C major 7, D minor, no, I'm sorry, A minor 7, D minor 7, G7. See, I was doing the same thing that I was doing earlier, where I'm just doing a really easy bass line just by really separating the bass note from the rest of the chord. to make the bass line a little more interesting, this is going to be on you to kind of be familiar enough with the major scale. And being able to hear how that would go along with the chords that you're doing. So, say we want to go from the C major 7 to the A minor 7. Let's put some of those other notes from the major scale in there. Let me try to do the same thing. Now going from the A minor 7 down to the D minor 7, let's put some more notes in there. Going from the D, the minor 7 to the G7, let's put some more notes in there. Getting something like this. Going from the G7 back down, if we want to repeat, back to the C. Maybe something like that. So you can see I was using just notes from the C major scale and just leading. Just going from one chord to the next and just kind of bridging them with notes from the major scale. And that was the 1, 4 minor, 2 minor, 5, which again was C major 7 or A minor 7. And then we had a D minor 7 to the G7. I'm going to do it again, but I'm going to use those voicings. I did some of the ones up here, and I'm going to do some down here now. Yeah, so let's go to D minor there. So that was, that was 1, 6 minor, 2 minor, 5, and I kept on wanting to do just like a doo-wop sort of a thing there, which is the 1 to the 6 minor to the 4 to the 5. That's what I kept on doing down there, and I didn't mean to do that. So I'm just going to play around with that turnaround a little bit more with the bass line, let you hear it. let's look at another really easy one. I'm just going to go over a couple of these. Let's see, we have one. This is kind of like a modification of the one we just did, which is, I guess it's kind of good to talk about this one now, because that's the modifications are going to be an important part too. This one it's kind of doing 1, 6, 2, 5, but the 6 is no longer minor here. So instead of doing a minor 7 for the 6th chord, it's actually going to be an A7, which it sounds just as good, if not better, I think. The 2, oh yeah, okay, so the 2 isn't minor either. It's also a 7th chord, and the 5 is a 7th chord like it was. So we have like a 1, which is a C major 7, to a 6, 7, to a 2, 7, which is D7, to a 5, 7. But you can use the bass lines the same way with this one. Really cool sound. I do like it. I do prefer. I prefer it to the original, just kind of like the diatonic chord progression that I talked about before. Now that kind of leads into something else that I wanted to talk about, and that is kind of doing little modifications in there, and how to go about doing something like that. Say we want to do these 2 chords, okay? Say we want to do like a C, the 1 chord, which is just like the major 7, the C major 7, and let's say we want to do the 2 chord, which was the D minor 7, but let's say that we want to do this now with the bass line. Say we want to add a D flat in there as part of the bass line. Now, there's a couple of ways to approach this that I like to do, and basically what that is when keeping either the rest of the chord notes on the first chord the same as you're changing, or keeping the chord notes of the second chords intact while changing, also kind of blending the two together. And here's what I mean by that. Say we can do it like this, the C major 7, and then when we want to do this chord or this bass note in there, do we want to keep the rest of the major 7 chord like that while leading into the 2 chord? Really cool sound, and it really makes that flat 9, which is normally a really nasty sounding note in something so major, it makes it sound really good. Or do we want to do it this way and go from this one and kind of blend it into the D minor 7 like this? Oh, hey Josh, yeah, sorry, I started a while ago. Now for this, I'm going to kind of finish the Oh, really? You didn't? Yeah. Well, it's okay. I mean, I covered a lot of the most important stuff at the beginning, so you'll be good. The stream kind of cut out halfway in between, but the connection came back, so I think it should be good. But okay, so what I was doing here is I was talking about if we were just playing a couple of notes in C major and doing the bass line, how to add. Right now I'm talking about adding in notes that aren't part of the C major scale. So I was doing this, like going from the 1 major 7 chord to the 2 7 chord, and adding in that note for the bass line. Kind of leave. You can either leave the remainder of the first chord intact, like this. Or you can leave the second chord itself intact and do it like that. Now, for something like that, I would say that the first one sounded better, but this also depends on which direction you're going. If you're going from like the 1 chord to the 2 chord, ascending like this, or if you're starting from here, going back to the 1 chord. If you're doing that, going from the 2 chord, then changing like that, seems to sound really good. Even though maybe that doing it this way would sound better either way. That. I think that this particular progression, just going from like C, D flat to D, just is always going to sound better doing it this way. Another one. Let's do this. This is another turnaround in itself. So we're going back to our 1 chord, C major 7, okay, and then we have our 3 chord, which is a E minor 7. 4 chord, F major 7, to the 5 chord, which is the G7. A little bit, Josh. Not a whole lot. I was kind of doing. I talked about doing the chords, the certain chord voicings to know for this. Are the ones that are like, you know, fifth on the 5th, 4th, 3rd, and 2nd strings like this. You know, major 7, minor 7. 7th, or doing them here, major 7, minor 7, and 7. But I was kind of doing a little bit of both. A little bit. I didn't specifically talk about alternating on between the 6th and the 5th string, just because that wasn't so much what I was concerned with doing. I was just kind of just following each chord and just picking which voicing I wanted to try when I went chord by chord. And sometimes I used the 6th string, sometimes I used the 5th string. I did talk about though how to just get used to doing this to begin with, which is just taking your chords. Kind of separating the bass. Oh, that's supposed to be this chord. No, you're good, man. You're good. I'm sorry you didn't get the notification, but it's at the very beginning, so you won't have any trouble finding it. So go back to this real quick, which this one does switch. I'm using specific chord voicings here. So I was doing a C major 7, the 3 chord was E minor 7, F major 7, and then the 5 chord, which is the G7. Kind of like a sort of a thing. Say we want to take the bass line for that would be something like that. Now this is what if we want to add in the sharp 4 in there? How do we do that? Well, once we get to that spot, keep the rest of that chord the same, and then move the bass note up to there, and you get that, which is it's like a C sharp, sorry, F sharp minor 7 flat 5. This is going back to if you're adding in bass notes that aren't normally there, because we were just starting with just talking about using only notes from the major scale as the bass notes, but you're going to want to get more interesting there and use some non-diatonic chord tones. So I'm just talking about an approach that I use, which is either I take the 2 chords and I either change the bass note and keep the first chord intact, which is what we did here, or you can kind of move, you use the new bass note, and then you would kind of go to what the next chord would be and keep that intact. But that's a lot harder for this one. Going back real quick to the previous example, which is a lot easier to see, if you're going between this and that, and you want to add that in there, do you want to go like this, which is play that, leave the chord intact, just change the bass note, and then go up to the next one like that? Or do you want to go like this and play that, and then you don't leave the first one intact, but you play the new bass note, kind of going into the next chord, and do it that way? Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's a really cool sound to it. I prefer this one for this particular example. But also it depends on whether you're ascending or descending. Sometimes it sounds better to do one or the other. Like we're ascending here from, and I think that ascending, doing it that way, sounds a lot better. And that's the same thing that I was just doing here. Leaving the rest of the F major 7 chord intact, and then doing our new bass note there. And then just continuing on like normal. Yeah, you probably do. It's really kind of a bluesy cadence. Although going back down the way you came for that one doesn't sound as good. For something like that, I would do maybe. I don't know what I would do there, actually. But ascending, at least, it sounds really good. Now that's just kind of playing the chords where I'm separating the bass note from the rest of the chord tones, but not really doing anything with the rhythm. If you want to give it a little bit more of a walking bass line, then you can do, you know. And let's look at another one here. Let's go back to, excuse me, inhaled my venom. The first progression I talked about was like a turnaround. It was like a 1 to the 6 to the 2 to the 5. So the 1 is the C major 7. The 6 is A minor 7. The 2 is D minor 7. And the G is the 5 is a G7. So we have that. Now, adding in bass notes to that using the major scale, just kind of leading using the bass. Just do like a I'm just sticking to the C major 7, the 1 major 7, the A minor 7, which is the 6th chord, the D minor 7, and I'm doing the 5 chord. I think that what you might have been hearing there is something that I played out of habit, which is instead of just playing a normal G7 chord, like sometimes I play it like this, sometimes I was playing it like this. But there were times where I played a 9. I played a G9 in place of a G7, which works just fine. I mean, you can interchange the two. Although for a example like this, I think I like the actual just 7th a little bit better. If you're doing the 9th in there, then that I think that would sound better if you started taking the chords that we're working with here and making them a little more interesting. Like a second example I talked about was kind of replacing the 6th chord with turning it into a 7th chord, a dominant chord instead of a minor chord. And then you go to the 2 chord, but this one, you turn that into a 7th chord as well. And then you have the G7 in there like we had before. So we had like a C major 7 to an A7 to a D7 to a G7. Now I think that for something like this, the 9 would sound better. Which is another thing that I was actually about to get to also, and that's just kind of how you can learn to modify these chords. Now, really with that's going to be on you to just kind of learn chords that are close to what we're doing here that you can kind of interchange between the two. And that was an example. You can, instead of using a 7th chord, you can use a 9th chord. Or if you say we want to take our just our one chord, okay? Say instead of doing C major 7 there, say we want to just do like a C7 there. It's just a different type of a major chord. One is a major 7, one's a dominant 7, but they're both major. So instead of this now, doing a 7th chord for the 1. Yeah, it does sound good. I like the sound of that a lot too. You can do another different type of major chord there, and say instead of just doing a 7th chord. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to go back and play that again, but I'm going to play it with the first turnaround, which is the one that had the minor 7, the minor 7, and the dominant 7 in there. So this is what we started with. Now we're just doing that, but replacing the 1 chord with a 7th chord. Now with some bass movement. But what I was just about to say before I did that is now let's replace that with a different kind of another type of a major chord, and let's do it like a 13th chord instead, which is a different way of playing a 7th chord. It's just a little more, it has more voicings in it. Let's try the same thing, but using the second turnaround, which is the one that used all of the 6th chord being dominant and the 2 chord being dominant. You can replace. Let's go back to the first turnaround again. The 1, the 6 minor, the 2 minor, and the 5/7. Now let's try replacing the D minor. Okay, the D minor 7. Let's replace that with something else, but something that's kind of similar. What about like a minor 9? A different type of minor chord. Minor 9. What about, let's do the same sort of a thing, but with the A minor 7 chord. Let's turn that into a minor 9 chord. what if we want to take the 5 chord, the 7th there, and say we want to change that into something else. Yeah, I really like minor 9 a lot. That's a very good sounding chord. Voicings to remember, the voicings that I used there was basically like just this one. If we were doing the D minor 9, it would just be like 5th fret, 3rd fret, 5th, 5th. And, excuse me, I can't go a day without inhaling something when I try to drink it. Say we want to do like the D minor 7 like that, you can turn this into a minor 9 by going like that. Just playing the E instead. But look at like the G7. Let's replace that with something else. Let's do a different type of G7 chord. You could do like 7 sharp 9. I don't know how good that would sound. I don't like that very much. We already heard what it sounds like doing a G9. To do like a G7 flat 9, which is kind of this would be like doing a 10, 9, 10, 9. Sounds cool. You could do, say you wanted to replace the G7 with like a G13. They kind of do, but the problem is that they stray they stray from it by making these small changes. They'll be using like a C7 in place of a C major, but the problem is doing that kind of doesn't really make it C major anymore. It's close. It's close, and you know that that's kind of like what it started from, and that's what they're modifying it from. But they start throwing in these tensions in there that kind of just makes it sound a lot more interesting, but kind of blurs the line to what key it's in a little bit sometimes. G7. I'm sorry, G13. G13, that one also resolves really nicely back to the 1. Just really nice resolution. Yeah, you can use minors. I find that if you're taking like a 7th chord, like a dominant chord, I find it a lot of the times you can work in a minor in place of a dominant chord. It's a lot harder to work a minor in place of like a major chord. But yeah, just using learning these voicings, the chords and the tensions, that's the big thing here. Just knowing what these chords are and how to change them. You can do, there's all kinds of more advanced substitution sort of thing in there. That's a topic for an entirely different video, but you start using something called Tritone Substitution. And if you're doing that, basically, I'm not going to explain it really well because that would take a long time. I did a video about that too. But using tritone substitution would be, say, adding in, instead of doing the D minor 7 there, you would do like an A flat 13. Oh, I'm sorry, that'd be a G sharp 13. Tritone substitution is something worth looking into, but that's just one other example. But yeah, how do you want to change the chords? Do you want to do like you could change the 1 chord from like a major 7 to, I don't know, like what was that? Like a major 6, or it's kind of like a major 7 add 13 to a going to the D. Say we want to do like a D. There, instead of doing a D minor 7, I replaced it with a D7. Close, but not quite the same thing. I was supposed to do a 9th chord there. Yeah, tritone substitution. It's basically like taking a chord, like in this case I was doing the D minor 7 there, which was the 2 chord, and instead of playing the 2 chord, basically you play a 7th chord starting on the tritone, which the tritone of D is the G sharp like that. And so instead of playing a D minor 7 or a minor 7 chord starting on the D there, you replace that with a 7th chord starting on the tritone. And instead of just doing a just a regular 7th chord, I did a 13 chord instead because it sounds better. You could do, say you stuck with that alteration, doing C major 7, A minor 7, doing like a D9 there to the G7. Replace that D9 with something else. Try like a 7 or a 7 flat 9 instead. That one has a nice resolution to it. It does sound slick, and you can make it even slicker because I hear there's something in there that I really want to hear the resolution of, and that is going to be on the G. If I change that D to the D7 flat 9, resolve that to maybe just like a 13 chord, a G13. Let's see what that sounds like. But I think that a 7 with a flat 13 is what I'm really looking for. And these are like this, like a 13 chord or a 7 flat 13 chord. These are all just different types of just your normal dominant 7 chord. We're just adding tensions. That's all we're doing to this, is just adding in different tensions to it. But we're still keeping the 5 chord. But doing the 7 with the flat 13 would sound like this. Let's see. could do that too, which is kind of just doing. You're almost like using passing tones, but just making chords out of them. You know. Yeah, so diminished is going to be close to the 7 chord, which would be starting on B. It's not a full diminished chord naturally, it's a minor 7 flat 5. So that's what occurs naturally off of the 7th degree of the major scale. Now you can alter it a little bit, and you can turn it into a full-blown diminished 7 chord, which instead of being like this, I'm doing 14, 15, 14, 15. Take the note on the 3rd string there and flat it again, and then you get this. The minor 7 flat 5 like this, which is 7, skip 7, 7, 6. Take the note that's on the 4th string, that 7 there, and you got to lower that one too. This one's a bit harder to switch to because you get this instead of this, which is the minor 7 flat 5. You have a full diminished there. But that's diminished to me. It always sounds good. It always works everywhere. It wants to resolve really strongly back to the 1. But you could just try it anywhere and see if you can get it to work. Like there it is. Also, a way to use diminished also is by changing something into diminished. Let's go back to what I was talking about with doing the 1 chord, the 1 major 7, the 2 minor 7, there, the C major 7, and the D minor 7, okay? When I changed it, and I changed that note to that one, what I did there is when I left all the notes in the C major 7 chord intact, but just changed the bass note to this. This is actually a D flat minor 7 flat 5, whereas that is pretty close to that diminished. Same goes for the one that I was talking about that goes like this. And getting to the 4 chord there, and then adding in that extra sharp 4 bass note. This right here is also a minor 7 flat 5 chord, so it's very close to diminished. And in fact, you could switch that to diminished pretty easily and it would still sound fine. Although, for something like that, I think that would be one of the ones where changing it to diminished would sound better if you were descending. So if you started from here and then went like this, I think it would sound better there. Or doing both of them. Would probably sound best of all. I did that wrong. So yeah, diminished. Where else could you work it into? That's basically the same thing that I did down here. Say if you wanted to go from, what about if we did? What I did there is I played our 1 chord. I played the C major 7, and I replaced the 3rd chord, the 3 chord, the E minor 7, with a E minor 7 flat 5. You know, very close but different. Yeah, I like just taking a minor 7 flat 5 and then just kind of throwing it in wherever and just seeing if it works. Kind of like throwing it in before one of the chord tones, like I was doing there. I was just throwing it in before the 4 chord. Yeah, they're very close. There's one note different. Diminished, a true diminished 7 has scale degrees 1, flat 3, flat 5, double flat 7. Or if we were talking about C, we would have a 1, a flat 3, which would be like E flat. We would have a flat 5, which would be G flat. And then we would have a double flat 7, which would be it'd be like a B double flat, which is the same thing as A. So, whereas a minor 7 flat 5, it has a 1, it has a flat 3, it has a flat 5, and it has just a regular flat 7, which is B flat. So minor 7 flat 5. Diminished 7. Yeah, very, very close though. They sound super, super duper close. Yes, they do. I think arpeggiating them kind of helps them to sound a little bit different from each other. It kind of helps you to differentiate them. But just playing them next to each other, they are very close. But I love using both of them together because it just sounds cool. Like, excuse me, C major 7, D minor 7 flat 5, D diminished 7, back to the 1 chord. I can get into this stuff in more detail with you. I'm gonna end the stream now, though. My throat's kind of it hurts. it's sore and it hurts. So yeah, but go back and check out the first stuff, and I can talk about this more if you want me to. You know, ask me any questions that you may have. But yeah, cool. So thanks. I hope that helps you out some.